Hello and happy, beautiful day to you. Welcome to today's quick IQ episode where we talk about insights and questions. And today I want to share with you a very powerful insight to help you to get unstuck because, all of the time you hear me working with people to help get radical healing results or transform their lives. And of course, there are certain things that we can do with our own minds that keep us stuck from getting results. And I know I've done that. In the past, when I was working on healing myself and changing my entire life, I did certain things that kept me stuck. And I know all of the time I see people that, part of the goal is to do the right thing with the mind. And part of it is also to stop doing the things that are keeping a person stuck. And it is so common. And so for that reason, I wanted to talk about that on today's quick IQ episode. I just wanted to share the top 4 things that I see people do that keeps them stuck, the 4 most common things that keep people stuck. And of course, the willingness to then overcome it. And that's where we're going today. So the first one is the most common. And of course, that is unawareness, where a person is not aware that they really have the power. And so that, of course, can keep us stuck if somebody feels like there's no way to move forward, or they're basically a victim in a situation, or they feel like, they're powerless. And all of the time, people can feel that way. Even when they're on the spiritual journey, there can be a feeling of thinking, and feeling this awareness of feeling like, okay, my thoughts help create my life. And they'll feel that way. And then simultaneously, they might feel like, oh, my husband is doing this all the time, or my wife, or my spouse, or my relationships, or my work, or there can be simultaneously that feeling of feeling powerless. And the beautiful thing is, and I've seen this all the time, and I know this may seem woo-woo or impossible to a lot of people, but I have seen people so often, when they change themselves, they really do change the dynamics of their relationship or their life or their health or, all kinds of things. I mean, I've seen people so frustrated regarding healing only to realize, of course, they had the power. And that was me. I was injured, wheelchair walker, cane for many, many years, waiting for my doctors to fix me, not realizing that I had the power to change, that I could use my own mind to heal my body. So all of the time, people can get stuck in that very place where we don't feel like we really have the power to make a change. And so what I would invite you, if you're in that place of feeling like a victim or stuck, I would invite you to notice if you are really, and a simple example you hear me use all of the time is, unfortunately, when we look at patterns repeating themselves, there's the woman with the abusive father who leaves him and can find the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, etc., etc. These patterns continue. And even in this situation, I mean, we can all have so much compassion for this situation. And also, the more that in this situation, even the more she heals herself, the more she has the power to really transform and feel that love and connection. And of course, that's the other thing. So that goes to number 2, and it is not blaming yourself. So you've got to make sure, it's a tricky thing to make sure to be able to identify patterns, and then also make sure to not blame yourself. So even in that hard situation, or anybody's situation, I mean, a lot of times injured, an absolute mess or hurt or in pain or emotional patterns or relationship patterns, they can feel very painful. And if you start to identify patterns and then you immediately start blaming yourself, that of course is going to keep you stuck too. And so you'll want to make sure to take in the awareness that nobody puts negative patterns in their mind on purpose. Nobody says, oh, well, let me put this negative pattern into my life to cause problems. Nobody does that. And so making sure that you can't blame yourself, because when we also stop and think about it, these patterns are stored in the subconscious mind. And when we think about the subconscious mind, it is by definition, it is below consciousness. So if it's below your consciousness, of course, part of it is becoming consciously aware of patterns that are below your consciousness, but you don't want to bring patterns up that are below your consciousness and then blame yourself for them. And so that, of course, is another thing that can keep people stuck. As if first they're unaware of a pattern, then they identify the pattern, and then they just start blaming themselves or feel bad or feel like it's their fault. That, of course, can keep a person stuck also. So there's that. Now, the third thing is that sometimes, of course, we've all heard of the comfort zone. Sometimes people will have a feeling of fear of making a change. And so they'll keep going back into the old. They keep going back into the old, getting stuck and really, going there over and over and over again. And actually, if you think about it, on the last episode last week, I worked with a beautiful, beautiful volunteer, Mila, who's, you could feel her heart. She's just precious. And also, I had a feeling of fear of changing. And by the way, if you listen to that episode, it was very insightful because what you notice from it is that, of course, I helped her to use her mind to get her pain from a level 8 down to less than a 1. And she was amazed, but then notice her mind kept going back into the old. She kept going back into the old because part of the reason is because there was a fear of change. And by the way, if you haven't listened to that episode, I'd strongly recommend doing so because you'll notice that again, that even though she was able to get out of pain, she kept going back into the negative because she would take her mind and go back into it. Now, of course, not blaming her, not her fault. But it's interesting how the mind works that keeps going back into those patterns. And by the way, it is not only her. Like if you think about it for a moment, if you've listened to podcast episodes, you hear me all of the time. I'll interrupt somebody. Why? Because I want them to get out of pain and their brain is stuck going back to the same path over and over and over. So I want to interrupt it because if I don't, then it goes back into the pain, which we saw clearly on last week's episode that her mind kept going back into the pain. And by the way, on that note, if you've ever listened to a podcast episode and you've wondered, hey, wait a second, why is Brandy interrupting somebody? That's why. Because our minds can keep going back. And also, if you've seen me push somebody a bit, it's because a lot of times that fear of change, we've all heard the phrase before, somebody can be paralyzed by fear. They can be stuck in fear. And so if somebody's stuck in fear, but then it makes them in pain or health issues and over illness and different illnesses, which was exactly the situation with our volunteer, pain here, stomach pain or back pain or, being stuck in that place and stuck in that loop. And so all the time, you'll notice that's the reason why I push people a bit to be willing to change, because if not, then they just stay stuck in that loop. So basically what I do is I'll push a bit to get them to change so then a person can see that the pain goes away. Then after that, of course, I don't want to keep pushing. It's up to them. It's like once you start to see that, hey, you do have the power, then it's up to creating a real change. But that's the point on number 3 is a person can be stuck not wanting to go outside of their comfort zone. And so that can create a problem. And of course, the number 4 thing that I see keep people stuck all of the time from getting results or going back into the problem is the awareness that our minds need to be reprogrammed. That, a lot of times we feel like our conscious mind is driving the ship, if you will, like we are consciously in charge. But our subconscious mind really does control everything. It controls our way of seeing the world, perceiving things, reacting, acting, emotions. All of these things are all happening in the subconscious mind. And so even if we want to make a change, we're willing to make a change, we're willing to see the pattern, we're willing to have the courage to change, then we also need to be willing to really program it in over and over and over again to get it in, just like we did as youngsters when we learned the alphabet. We got it in over and over and over. And of course, in this case, it's reprogramming the mind. It's reprogramming a new behavior, a new habit, or a new emotion, or a new perspective. It's really creating a change at a deeper level in the subconscious mind. And so that's the insight that I really wanted to give you. And part of the reason that is again, because if you really think about the last episode, again, our volunteer on the last volunteer episode, just a beautiful, beautiful being. And you saw, if you listen to that episode, how many times that when I just didn't interrupt and I let her mind go wherever she wanted to go, that she went back into the pain. And again, it is not just her. It's just a lot of times that's the very reason you'll hear me on podcast episodes. I know I'm saying this repeatedly. That's a lot of times the very reason you hear me interrupt. So I'm just trying to say it's not her. We're not blaming her. She's brilliant and beautiful. That's how the mind works. It's so used to taking one route over and over and over and over again that her mind was just reacting from her programming. And so it was going back into the old and back into the old over and over. And so that's what I want to invite you to look at, because if somebody's in that state where any of these things are blocking them, then even though they're wanting to change, they're wanting to follow through, they're wanting to heal themselves, if their mind is stuck in the blame, or it's stuck in a feeling of fear of change, or it's stuck not knowing that it really needs to reprogram at a deeper level of the mind, if any of these things are happening, of course, it can keep somebody from getting lasting results. And by the way, I personally made all of these mistakes, okay? And that's how I learned not to do them. So that's the exact thing, is the more I became aware of the problem, the more I realized how to work with my mind in a different way to really get results. And so that's the insight that I want to share with you today, is real change, is making sure not to get stuck. When we stop and think about it, you hear me say all of the time that even healing with the mind is literally written throughout history. It's even in the Bible thousands of years ago, or metaphysics, or Christian Science, or psychoneuroimmunology, or stress affects the physical body. I mean, it is literally written all around us. Or the example you hear me use all of the time, multiple personality disorder. People with multiple personalities can have different illnesses and different personalities. So my point is, of course, this information is all around us. And the more that every single person in our world learns to use their mind to heal themselves, to change their lives, the better this world is for all of us. And so I just wanted to share this information, and please do make a point to hit the share button on this video, this recording, this podcast episode. Please do hit the share button and share it with somebody you love, somebody you care about, or somebody you don't even know, because the more that everybody gets results, the better this world is for all of us. And so please do hit the share button, and please do make a point to have a most wonderful, incredible rest of your day. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you there. Thank you for listening to Heal Yourself, Change Your Life. All of the time, people reach out and say how much these episodes have given them hope, or touched their heart, or helped them stay positive in hard times, or even woken them up to a completely new level of awareness of how amazing we all really are. If today's episode touched your heart or expanded your mind in any way, please do me a favor and be sure to share it with those you care about, or those you know who really need it. As more and more people become empowered, it really will change our world for the better. That is the point and the power of these demonstrations, is to create a radical shift in our world consciousness by showing everyone what we are all capable of. And of course, each volunteer will really need to follow through to reinforce their programming to maintain their results. But the point is for you to see that you really can create rapid results in your health and your life if you really understand how to use your mind. You're incredible. And I do want to be clear, though, that most people will not get results this fast on their own. I make it look very easy because of the discoveries that I made. You'll want to remember that there's so much more going on in our minds at a deeper level than people realize. That said, if you want to send me any questions or comments, come visit me on my website at BrandyGillmore.com/podcast. And if you're currently experiencing physical pain and would like to be a volunteer on the show, you can sign up there as well. Lastly, please remember, if you do have any health issues, you won't want to avoid your doctors. Instead, you'll want to continue seeing them and make it your goal to blow their minds with what you're capable of with your mind. Thank you.